All right, so what's going on, guys? It's DFS Ultra Brian here, and I'm gonna bring you a NFL Week 16 breakdown, I guess, more of a preview or whatnot. I wish I could have done this earlier. It's something I really wanted to do, but with school and everything, I've just been really busy and just never really got around to doing it. But now that I'm on break, I mean, albeit it's Week 16, but I'm gonna try to pump out a couple videos for NFL for Week 16 and 17, maybe into the playoffs. So let's just get right into it. Um, the first thing is quarterbacks. So the way the slate is shaping out to be is that like I know some weeks are you go studs and stub or stars and scrubs, right? So you get the highest paid running backs and you kind of try to find value elsewhere. I don't think that's the way the slate is really shaping up to be like. Um, from my model, it's not really looking like it's going to be that kind of slate. Maybe at wide receiver, but there's some great running back plays that are cheaper that we can get into. But for quarterbacks, uh, my top projected quarterbacks for the main slate are going to be Drew Brees. I mean, that's a pretty obvious one, right? Highest totaled game. He's at home. His home road splits are pretty obvious, but his last two games are at home. He should be pretty solid. The Steelers' defense is, I mean, they're all right, right? Like they're not fantastic. Football Outsiders has them ranked at 17, so they're right in the middle of the pack. Um, so yeah, Drew Brees is probably one of the safest options. Should be one of the chalkier quarterbacks in my opinion. But uh, yeah, so he's a very safe play. And to run it back with him on the other side is Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, I'm not. We've always had concerns about his home road splits. I'm not really too concerned about his splits when it comes to him playing in a dome. Um, with that being said, this game probably will be a shootout. Uh, like what is it? Mercedes Benz has always been kind of like the Coors Field of the NFL. Um, Probably will be a shootout, uh, especially with James Conner still out. I think Ben throws it more, and Jalen Samuels we can get into later. But yeah, Ben is one of the safer plays at quarterback. He grades out as, let's see, like a top five quarterback option for me this week. I think right up there behind Drew Brees. Yeah, he's number two. Um, Another quarterback we can get into is, where is he? Right, there he is. Deshaun Watson. He's another high price quarterback, and I promise we'll get into some of the cheaper options later. But the Philadelphia Eagles don't have a defense. Like you go to their defense, every single player on that defense is injured. Timmy Jernigan out, Michael Bennett out, Sidney Jones out. I follow the NFL religiously, and I literally watch like most NFL games. I can't tell you the starting cornerbacks of the Eagles right now. That's how banged up they are. Maybe Rasul Douglas. I don't know. Um, but yeah, Deshaun Watson. Uh, the main concern for me here is if he's high owned, I probably won't play him, but I don't think he will be. The main concern is that Philadelphia D line with Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, they are going to eat up that Texans O line. But if Watson can create some extra time with his legs, maybe create some plays out of structure, there's no one in the Philadelphia secondary that's going to stop him. And he also has a guy named DeAndre Hopkins who's pretty good at football at wide receiver. So yeah, Deshaun Watson grades out as a number three quarterback for me according to my model. Um, Another guy I want to talk about a lot is, where is he? Trying to find him on the model. There he is. Okay. We gotta find, where is he? Did I scroll by him? I'm just gonna type it in. Let's see. There he is. Dak Prescott at 5'7". Uh, Really interesting play here. Uh, Dak is much better at home than he is on the road. Tampa Bay's defense, while it has gotten better, it's still not great. Um, they're susceptible to the pass as they have kind of shored up their run defense. But with that being said, because Zeke is so involved in the passing game now, Dak still represents a solid floor. I know I say that as he's coming off a 7-point game, but he still represents a solid floor against Tampa Bay, and I could definitely see him getting like 20 plus points. He should be one of the highest owned quarterbacks at 5'7". He does present a lot of value over there at quarterback, and he grades out to me as like my fourth best quarterback play to me this week. And the last quarterback I will talk about is, where is he? Gotta find him. Oh, he's gonna be at the very bottom. There he is. Guys, I'm not trolling here. Look, Taylor Heineke is 4K. Um, he can run, right? He ran like a 4.6 at Old Dominion. He's gonna dink and dunk, but the thing about the Panthers, they have a lot of yak receivers, right? DJ Moore is a threat to take it to the house every time he gets the ball in his hands. Curtis Samuel, same thing. Christian McCaffrey, same thing. He's gonna have a lot of weapons that can, even if you throw a 5 yard pass, they can take it for another 20. And good thing for fantasy is a 5 yard pass, or 5 yard pass that is then taken for 20 is still 25 yards regardless. So look, 4K. He's gonna. I'm assuming the Falcons get up in this game, and he's gonna have to throw. Having Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield always helps. Look, guys. I mean, he doesn't. Don't get me wrong. He does not grade out well for me. He's not like a top 5 or even a top 10 option. I'm just saying, at 4K, like you could do worse than. I mean, for Taylor. I mean, like, look. I wanted to play Josh Johnson a couple, like maybe 2 weeks ago at like 4.5. I think it was actually last week at 4.5. It worked out. I mean, this is kind of the same situation. Atlanta's defense is better now that they're kind of healthy, but they're still not great. Look, he like 4K. I mean, he helps you fit a lot of things in. So, um, that's not. I'm not trolling, guys. I'm being for real. Like it's a solid option. Other guys that are GPP options that you could look into are guys like Mitch Trubisky. Uh, I mean, he represents a safe floor, just mainly like rushing upside alone. He represents a safe floor. So Mitch Trubisky is an interesting play. I probably won't go there. Baker Mayfield, Cincy's defense is terrible. They're not good, but and we saw what Baker did the last time they played him. He ripped, Hugh Jackson's quote unquote defense apart. Um, yeah, that's about it for quarterbacks. I don't really see anyone. If I don't mention it, I really don't like him, and they don't really grade out for me that well. Contrarian play is Andrew Luck. That's probably the most like top contrarian play for me, just because if he does get the volume, he could easily pop off for a 27-point game. But I have some concerns for him that I'll address when we get to the other positions. So that wraps up the quarterbacks. Let's move on to running backs here. Uh, Look, Todd Gurley, if he doesn't play, whoever his backup is, like, don't get me wrong, C.J. Anderson is a bad football player. Uh, is he even? He's not even on here. Never mind then. See, okay, I guess you can't play C.J. Anderson. I'm assuming they'll toss him in there eventually. But John Kelly is his backup. He was great in the preseason. He hasn't really played in the regular season for whatever reason. I haven't really looked into it too much. But if Todd Gurley doesn't play, that's probably going to be the chalk of the slate, honestly. Um, I know Todd Gurley was supposed to play, and then McVay said, we'll test him out pregame, see how that goes. So keep an eye out on that. The chalkiest running back of the slate will be Ezekiel Elliott. I can guarantee you that. Great matchup against Tampa Bay. Uh, he gets a huge workload after he only had 18 carries last week, and I know you could say a lot of that was due to game script, but I mean maybe a bit of a squeaky wheel narrative. Maybe they kind of run the ball more and just kind of get back to that ground and pound style of offense. So Ezekiel Elliott is the safest player running back. I really love Ezekiel Elliott. Christian McCaffrey's like, I mean, he's cool, but like if Cam's sitting and they realize that they have no chance at winning this season, uh, I think they might try to limit McCaffrey's workload. I know there are some narratives involved, including him trying to get his 1,000 yards and 100 receptions, but like I don't see the upside of Christian McCaffrey, especially if this game does potentially get out of hand. They just won't play him. Um, I don't know what the ownership for Saquon's going to be this week, but he's coming off a stinker, 9.6, but it's also Saquon Barkley, and we know what he's capable of. We are very aware of what Saquon Barkley is capable of. So I'm really interested in playing him. I'm not really interested, but kind of interested in playing him if his ownership is not too high. I know that the Indy defense does give up a lot of receptions to running backs, although they're really good on like at limiting the running attack. do give up receptions to the running back. So Saquon's interesting at 7.9. I'll have to look at ownership before I make a decision there. Alvin Kamara at 7.4 is a steal. Yeah, I mean, highest total game. He's not only the number one running back of this team, but he's like the number 2 receiver. I can't imagine a scenario in which he's not chalk, to be honest. I can't imagine a scenario in which I don't play 7.4 Alvin Kamara. If you look at his game log, this is what, I mean, he was pretty cheap last week, but outside of that, it's a guy who's constantly in the 8K range. So, yeah, the last time he was 7K was against the Rams, and he went off. So, yeah, Alvin Kamara, very interesting play at 7.4. I really like that play. One of my favorite running backs is Nick Chubb this week. We saw what he did against Cincy a couple weeks back. He had a monster game. Should be the same deal. Cincy's run defense is terrible. The Browns should win this game pretty handily, especially at home. At 7-3, Nick Chubb is a great play, especially because, up to last week, he was getting receiving work, and then Duke Johnson kind of came out of nowhere. But either way, Nick Chubb is as safe as you can get on this slate at running back. Dalvin Cook, I loved Dalvin Cook last week. He went off. Awesome. Don't really see that same upside there, but the Lions' run D is banged up. Dalvin does get a good amount of, he outside of last week when they were up by like 30 at half or something like that. It wasn't 30, it was like 10, 15, but then eventually it got out of hand. But he did see like a good amount of targets before, so he does present that kind of upside as well. And Dalvin Cook is a good player, so at 6.9, depends on ownership. If he's not very high owned, he's a very good contrarian play. We talked about Jaylen Samuels. The only main thing for Jaylen Samuels is his receiving upside. That's pretty much it. He's not going to get a lot of. Well, I did say that last week too. I was only on him for the receiving upside. Then he churns out 142 yards on the ground. But again, Saints defense is better than the Patriots defense. I think the main thing here you're looking for is for him to get like 5 or 6 catches, turn it into like 60 yards, and maybe sneak into the end zone. Let's see. The main guy I want to talk about is Marlon Mack. Okay, guys. If Derrick Henry was 500 cheaper last week, I would have been all over him. He was 5K. If he was like 4 or 5, I would have been all over him. I just couldn't fathom playing 5K because it felt like chasing. But like I understood the matchup was incredible, right? Like we've seen the corpse of Adrian Peterson drop like 140 yards on the Giants' run defense. Once they traded Snacks, their run defense was gone. Marlon Mack. This is my play this week. This is the hill I'm willing to die on. He's only 5.5. I haven't really heard a lot of talk on him. This is my lock of the week, guys. Yes, his price has gone up, but the Colts, they're getting Mark Lewinsky back, and they average like 4.5 yards per carry with Ryan Kelly at center. This game should get out of hand. What are the Colts? They are what? Let's see. They are. What are the Giants? Hold on, let me check the spread of this game. They're 9.5-point favorites right now. Look, I don't see a scenario in which Marlon Mack busts in this game. Like, this is as clear cut as this gets. He should gash this run defense over and over again. Plus, they lost Alec Ogletree. I don't see a scenario in which Marlon Mack struggles. He is my lock of the week. I'm going to start with Marlon Mack, and then we'll go from there. I love Marlon Mack this week. 5.5, fantastic play. Moving on to some cheaper running backs. If LaShawn McCoy is playing, and he's on track to play, look, he's a pretty solid option, right? We just saw Jaylen Samuels gash the Patriots' run defense. Josh Allen's rushing upside takes some pressure off Shady McCoy. Robert Foster is a thing out at wide receiver, apparently, so the Patriots do have to pay attention to him deep. I think Shady could see a couple catches and maybe like 80 rushing yards, maybe sneak into the end zone. I really like Shady at his price if he does play. Oh, man, Jordan Howard kind of let me down last week. Like, the matchup was so good. Don't get me wrong, 14.5 at 3.9, like, I'll take it. We've seen slightly a price increase. I probably won't go here again this week just because the 49ers run defense is... They've shown some leaks recently, but they're still not great. Or they're still not bad. They're not great. They're not terrible. And because of that, I don't know how I feel about playing Jordan Howard at 4.3. But he's an interesting option I'll keep an eye on. Outside of that, I don't really see too much. Oh, Kalen Ballage. Forgot to almost mention Kalen Ballage. 3.7, Jacksonville's run defense was just trampled by Derrick Henry. And then I'm pretty sure they gave up a lot of yards last week too, right? What? Let's see, Jackson. I think the ground game of the Redskins had a decent week. I mean, it could have been buoyed or kind of elevated by Josh Johnson's rushing. Yeah, they gave up like what, 109 yards on the ground, including 49 to the quarterback. So, I mean, they kind of patched some of those leaks, but still, with that being said, Kalen Balaj, I mean, he seems to be the guy. Kenyon Drake, for whatever reason, doesn't play unless it's a passing situation. And Balaj is a good player. Even if you take out the 75-yard rush last week, what is that? Still 48 on 11 carries, 4.4. Like, I mean, at 3.7, you can do a lot worse. I think in cash games, he's a pretty safe play. And I think he's going to be pretty decently owned too, especially with the way I probably am going to approach this slate. Outside of that, I don't really see anyone here. I know I've been kind of harping on Theo Riddick for a while now. I mean, for cash games, he gives you like what, the 8-9 point floor just because he's going to catch like 4 catches for like 20 yards. Um, Look, Minnesota's defense should eat up the Lions and their O line, right? Matthew Stafford's going to get sacked at least 3 times. They're going to have to get the ball out quick. I think Theo could kind of help with that. But, oh, Eli McGuire. I mean, there's been some talk about him, and he was terrible last week, guys. He was so bad. And he got a bailout touchdown at the end. Look, at 4.7, you can do worse. He's going to get the touches. He's going to get what was that? Like, he's going to get like 15, 20 touches at the minimum. I could see it. I just don't want to see it, but I mean, for cash games, I guess he's fine. I just don't think he's that great as a player, but like at 4.7, you see the upside in the amount of touches there. So that's the last guy I really want to mention. I don't think there's anyone else here. Again, Marlon Mack is the lock of the week, and that's about it. So let's move on to wide receivers here. Immediately, Julio Jones, no, because if you see right here, he's a limited participant, and I mean, although he's going to play, it is still concerning because, well, the Falcons have nothing to play for. Um, According to my model, when it comes to wide receivers, let's see. The number one wide receiver for me this week is Davante Adams. Rodgers is playing. The Jets are bad against wide receivers. They're just a bad team. And he has that narrative, right? He wants to, break Jordy Nelson's record or Sterling Sharp's record. So he has the narrative on his side. Davante Adams is a pretty much lock for me this week. I think not a lot of people are going to go there considering his price and considering the fact that they have nothing to play for. But as long as Rodgers is there, I mean, I don't see why he just, especially with Randall Cobb out, I don't see a scenario in which he just doesn't pepper Davante Adams with targets. I really like Davante Adams this week. Um, Antonio Brown, look, no, I know it's the highest totaled game, but like, no, I don't think I'm gonna go there this week. I know he's still one of the better receivers in the NFL, but I think he's just kind of been overtaken by Juju, right? If you look at his game against the Patriots, I mean, that's really just another bad week outside of that touchdown. And if you look at his game log, 3 out of the past 4 weeks, he's been kind of and we're paying 8.3 for him. I think I'm just gonna pass here when it comes to Antonio Brown. I'm not really liking this play, especially because there are other wide receivers either cheaper or more expensive that I like more. Speaking of other wide receivers, Michael Thomas is another lock for me probably. At home, again, much better than he is on the road just because that's the way Drew Brees goes. This game's supposed to be a shootout. Michael Thomas lines up in the slot, or he runs the most routes from the slot. Steelers like to cover slot receivers with linebackers for whatever reason. Highest total game of the slate. I mean, he grades out as my number 2 wide receiver. Love Michael Thomas this week. I think he's as safe as it gets at wide receiver. Juju is someone I really want to play, but if it wasn't for that groin injury, oh my gosh, if Juju didn't have a groin injury, I would play him 100%. He's my number 3 receiver, according to my model. But he has a groin injury. And I've had a groin injury, and those are not fun to run on. I'm not saying I'm Juju Smith-Schuster. He's obviously much more athletic than I am, but those are still not fun to run on. The way I think this goes is I think the Saints really do their best to try to take out Juju and Antonio Brown. Just kind of like make sure they don't explode and just or just live with Vance McDonald or Jalen Samuels beating them. Um, I'll have to go back and see how much I like Juju, but he played a lot in the slot. That's the Saints' weakest area. I really like him. I really like him. I just have to make sure if I'm in GPPs, I think I'm going there. I don't know if I can feel comfortable enough to play him in cash. Where do you go? Oh, DeAndre Hopkins. I forgot to mention him. Yeah, one of my favorite receivers of the week. Um, Again, Philadelphia's doesn't have a secondary. Their defense is not good. Um, DeAndre Hopkins is very good. Should see. He's my, let's see, number 4 receiver, right behind Devontae, Michael Thomas, and Juju. Um, what should see 10 targets again. He'll haul in at least like 7 or 8 of them. Maybe one goes for a TD. I mean, I don't know. He's just a really good receiver. I mean, he's injured, but he's expected to play. Look, this guy is this guy's a stud. He's 8'6". I know that's pretty steep, but the way this shape is lining up, I think you can afford to fit him in. I love DeAndre Hopkins. It makes me super sad, but I think the time of Adam Thielen being a number 1 receiver in fantasy is over. Again, makes me super sad, but yeah, yeah, I think it's over. Again, breaks my heart. Well, I love Julian Edelman this week. He grades out as my number 6 receiver on this main slate. Josh Gordon is gone. I really hope Josh Gordon can beat whatever battle he's fighting and get better. But for fantasy purposes, that means more targets to the other receivers. Buffalo's weakness is against the slot. I don't expect Tom Brady to throw a lot here, but I do still expect Edelman to get like 10 targets, especially because I don't think there's another good receiver out there. Like Gronk is just a corpse out there at this point. He can't move. You saw that in the Miami Miracle. Josh Gordon, or not Josh Gordon, Chris Hogan, right? Like it's Chris Hogan. And then what? Philip Dorsett and Cordero Patterson, like no. Edelman's the only guy Brady can trust there, and they do need to win this game. So I really like Julian Edelman. Amari Cooper is someone that's interesting. I don't know how his ownership's going to be, but look, Dak is much better at home. This is his number 1 receiver. They're creative in getting him open. I could see a big game for him, Amari Cooper. Outside of those guys, I don't. Oh, Kenny Golladay at 6K is just way too cheap. There's like if I actually don't know if he's. I mean, he's questionable, but I haven't seen anything about him not playing. Yeah, but so last week I really liked Kenny Golladay. It just was the matchup just wasn't there, right? It was a low total game. It's also Matthew Stafford at quarterback, but the model really liked him just because the opportunity was there. And I wish I had a little more to him. He actually grades out as like my 5th best receiver. Especially with Ellington out, I could see him getting another 8 targets, 8, 9 targets, depending how this game goes. They're creative in finding ways to get him the ball, right? They played him like 50% or 45% in the slot last week to kind of shield him from Tre'Davious White, although he did still beat Tre'Davious White a couple times. Not safe for cash, but in GPPs, I really like Kenny Golladay at only 6K, especially for the production that you could potentially receive there. Let's see. There are a couple guys I want to mention. The first being Demaryius Thomas. He grades out as like my what? 1, 2, 3. My 8th best receiver on the main slate, and he's only 4.7. Again, Philadelphia doesn't have any secondary. So, I mean, Demaryius Thomas, if he sees another 8 targets, I could see him doing something. Cash games, he's a very good play. GPPs, I don't really see an upside, but for cash games, at the very minimum, he's a very solid play. Outside of those guys, I don't really see anyone here that's cheap at wide receiver that's really jumping out to me. Yeah, I can't really just, comfortably say play these guys down here, right? I will say someone to keep an eye out is for is Tre'Quan Smith. I know he's been terrible the past 3 weeks, and maybe he is getting vaulted in the depth chart by Keith Kirkwood. But we've seen the home road splits for Tre'Quan Smith. If you look at it, 34.7 at home, 10.3 at home, zeros on the road. Look, 29.1 at home, just nothing on the road. So he has those home road splits just like Drew Brees. I could see him maybe having a good game. I'm not sure there. Isaiah McKenzie, he was a very cheap play last week. I played him in one lineup, and he kind of came through, but I'm not really too comfortable playing Isaiah McKenzie again. Outside of those guys, I don't really see anyone I like here. I want to make sure Alshon Jeffrey and Allen Robinson are two guys that are GPP viable, just because Alshon and Nick Foles seem to have like that connection. Allen Robinson is the number one wide receiver of one of the most, I would say, dynamic offenses in the league. So those guys are always in play in terms of GPPs, but I don't really feel safe for them in cash. So again, I really think this is a week you just pay up at wide receiver, whether it's Nuke, Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas, Juju, or Edelman, or even Kenny Golladay. Moving on to tight ends here, immediately my number one tight end I can tell you right now is Evan Ingram. You look at his last game, had 12 targets, 75 yards. I mean, Indy actually is not good against tight ends. They play, I'm pretty sure I saw that they play somewhat of like a zone defense, and because of that, they're susceptible to getting beat by tight ends. They give up, I think, the second most amount of pass attempts to tight ends in the league, according to Football Outsiders. He's only 4'6". Look, they don't have another receiver. Odell Beckham's out. Like, I think Evan Ingram is safe for at least like 8 targets at the minimum. Yeah, I really think he has a big game. The next tight end I want to talk about, Zach Ertz, right? He's had 2 kind of games, and we've seen his price dramatically fall from 7.6 it was a couple weeks ago. Guys, it's Zach Ertz. He's the best receiving, outside of Travis Kelce, the best receiving tight end in football. He grades out well, even as a receiver for me on the bottle. And as a matter of fact, on the main slate, he's number 2 right behind Evan Ingram. So, look, Zach Ertz at 5'9", GPP play, I'm all for it. The other guy I do want to talk about is Vance McDonald. Like I said earlier, I do think this is one of those games where the Saints try to take away Juju and AB and say, if you beat us with Jalen Samuels and Vance McDonald, you beat us. The Saints are actually the only other, the Saints are, terrible against tight ends. They're ranked 30th again from Football Outsiders. They give up like the 3rd or 4th, like the 5th most amount of catches or passes attempts allowed to tight ends per game. Look, I really like Vance McDonald in this game. 4-1, highest total game of the slate. I think Ben's going to have to throw, and I think Vance McDonald is who's going to get. I know the targets haven't been there, but I think he gets at least 5 or 6 targets this game. I really like him. Outside of those guys, I just don't see anyone really cheaper that I'm too interested in playing. Maybe Chris Herndon from the Jets. He only sees I think he's going to see like 5 targets, but he's like a okay punt at 3-1. I mean, you could do worse, right? He's not great, but he's not terrible. I don't really see anyone else at tight end here that I'm too interested in playing. Maybe Ian Thomas. Bad quarterbacks love their tight ends. That's the thing. I expect Heineke just to dink and dunk his way down the field, and Ian Thomas would probably be the guy for that. But outside of that, for me, it's going to be 100% Ingram or Vance McDonald to me. It maybe at this, depending on how the rest of my roster construction works. If I have the extra money, I'm going Ingram. If I don't, I'll go Vance McDonald. Those are like the only 2 tight ends on my radar, and maybe a little Zach Ertz and GPPs. That's about it for tight ends. I don't have anything else there. I don't really have anything else there. Yeah, I don't like Gronk. Yeah, those guys aren't on the main slate. So yeah, on the main slate, it's literally Evan Ingram or Vance McDonald for me. Defensively, last week it was all aboard the Falcons defense against Josh Rosen. I don't like to pay over $3K for defenses unless I just have the salary to do so. So I like to kind of start from the bottom and kind of work my way up and see, that defense should be fine enough. If you do that, look, if Gurley doesn't play, the Cardinals at 2K is very enticing to me. Now, make sure Gurley doesn't play because you do not play the Cardinals defense against the Rams if Gurley is playing. But Gurley is the most valuable player on the Rams offense. That offense goes and it's built through Todd Gurley because Todd Gurley can run it, and then Todd Gurley sets up the play action game that allows Goff to be somewhat successful. Remember, Goff is terrible against pressure. It just like the slightest sense of pressure, and he turns into Derek Carr. Chandler Jones, pass rusher for the Cardinals, good at football, good at rushing the passer. If Todd Gurley doesn't play, I can almost guarantee I'm going to go 100% Cards D. Outside of that, you're going to have to come all the way up to probably the Dolphins D against Jacksonville. They get X Howard back. I don't think they're a great defense in real life, but they get points in fantasy. And Cody Kessler has yet to orchestrate a touchdown drive, so that's kind of cool when playing defenses against them. And also Leonard Fournette. They were talking about, seeing what David Williams has, and he didn't really touch the ball in the second half, so that too. Outside of those guys, I mean, look, the Rams defense against Arizona, sure, at 3-2, if you have the salary to do that, do it, because Josh Rosen is more than likely going to throw a pick six this game. But I could definitely see if Todd Gurley doesn't play, the Cardinals defense just maybe outscoring the Rams defense, like having just as good of a day. The Cardinals defense is a good, not a good defense, but they're like an okay defense. They're a middle of the pack defense, and their main weakness is the rush. So again, if Todd Gurley doesn't play, I am not worried about C.J. Anderson. I really like the Cardinals defense if Gurley doesn't play. It's going to be them or the Dolphins for me probably. Maybe sprinkle in a little Rams D. But I think that's all for me. To quickly recap, quarterback, one of these top three guys is the safest option. Mix in Dak Prescott, and then if you're really feeling risky, if you really woke up feeling dangerous this week, Taylor Heinicke at 4K. I mean, I don't want to do it, but I might. I don't know. Running back, start with Marlon Mack, get either Zeke or Kamara or Chubb, and then receiver, go one of these big named guys, and then maybe Kenny Golladay, GPP. Tight end, it's 100% Evan Ingram or Vance McDonald to me, and then defense, as I mentioned, it's Cardinals D or Dolphins D. So that's about it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you have any questions. Hit me up on Twitter at DFS Ultra, and I'm out.